coefficient is the dimensional form. Nusselt number is the non-dimensional heat transfer coefficient, right? So Nusselt number at a particular location X, which is the physical, which has a physical meaning of the convective heat transfer to the conductive heat transfer. Okay, which has a architecture which is very similar to the BO number, but that was rather resistance and this was rather transfer. So convective heat transfer to the conductive heat transfer, and there what you can do is that you can correlate with what? With the Prandtl number to the Reynolds number. So one can very physically see this. How is it happening? You know, Prandtl number means what? How the temperature is diffusing in that direction. Reynolds number means what? How much it is convecting. So Nusselt number is a kind of it's a balance between the Prandtl number and Reynolds number. These are the three most famous, you know, dimensionless numbers, and you should be very, very careful in remembering them, because, you know, many times when you go for interviews, engineering interviews in the in chemical industry, in software industry, anywhere you go, you know, you as a chemical engineer, if your basic degree is at chemical engineering, you will be asked the questions on this Nusselt number, Prandtl number, Reynolds number. Okay, and this heat transfer course actually gives you the first introduction to these numbers. Of course, fluid mechanics is giving you the introduction to Reynolds number, but then Prandtl number and Nusselt number also, you know, these are very famous dimensionless numbers. And why they are so important? Because you can see that this particular equation, you know, consists of so many parameters. Like Nusselt number means what? Hx by k. So you have involved heat transfer coefficient and thermal conductivity. Like Prandtl number is 1 mu Cp by k. So you have involved 3 more parameters. Reynolds number means dV by mu. So you can see that, you know, it's a very simple type of equation, but then it has got so many parameters embedded inside it. And these parameters are like Reynolds number is what? Inertia to viscous force. Prandtl number is what? Thermal diffusivity to momentum diffusivity. Nusselt number is what? Conductive heat transfer to convectivity transfer to the conductivity transfer. So you can see that these are all, you know, dealing with two different types of phenomena or two different types of forces, okay, which are joined together. You know, today with this development of different types of evolutionary algorithms, like say suppose genetic algorithm, like say suppose artificial neural network and all, you know, people have really started appreciating, you know, the importance of these equations, because for any stochastic modeling, you know, people are doing right now the stochastic modeling related to fluid, and they are really able to arrive to this sort of equations, you know, from different types of stochastic processes, right? So it's a very interesting area of, like, you know, research as well as engineering, you know, industry is also involved there. So what they are doing, they are not defining any governing equation. You know, they are just defining the forces that are acting in different places, and then from there they are emerging the whole science, emerging the whole physics, you know, associated with that in order to arrive to this equation. So genetic algorithm has been used to prove this equation, you know, from the discrete form, from the forces and all, right? But then, you know, this we are obtaining from the analytical side, which was the development for last 200 years. So this is the Nusselt number at X, and this is the Nusselt number average. So the thing that you need to understand that Nusselt number is proportional to Prandtl number to the power 1/3 and Reynolds number to the power 1/2. So they are not linearly correlated. Okay, so there is some non-linearity associated with that, and we understand why is the reason behind that. And then what we did, like, you know, this is a very important discovery, that Reynolds-Colburn analogy. Why is that? Why is it so important? That, you know, whenever you are doing whenever you are developing a boundary layer, the boundary layer is also associated with the frictional losses, and these frictional losses are also associated with the heat generation. So, you know, it's a chicken and egg problem. Like, say suppose if there is a flow, there will always be a boundary layer. Okay. Now, if there is a boundary layer, there will always be a laminar sublayer in that boundary layer. The entire boundary layer can be laminar, or if the boundary layer is turbulent, there can be a laminar sublayer. Now, whenever there is a laminar sublayer, you know, there will be frictional losses. Okay. Now, these frictional losses will again in turn lead to the heat generation, right? So, you know, First is there will be friction, and then there will be heat generation. Now, when the heat will be generated, the heat will be convected. That heat also will be convected alongside the gradient of temperature that you are maintaining. So these are all taken in together, when you go towards the wall. So what is the source of your friction? It is the wall shear stress. How do you define wall shear stress? You say that this is proportional to what? Rho u infinity square by 2. So this is the kinetic energy. Why am I saying that? Say suppose you are having two surfaces, okay, and I am just rubbing them with a very low velocity, right? So there will be some sort of friction. Now say suppose if I start increasing the velocity like this, what will happen? You will see the heat generation will be more. So the mechanics or the kinetics associated with this process, which you can define as u infinity square. So half rho u square is the kinetic energy. So kinetic energy of the material has some influence on the wall. Okay, so that's why it is said that tau w equal to CF rho infinity square. Now for a fluid, we know that tau w is what? From Newton's law of viscosity, if it is a Newtonian fluid, it is like this. So if you just simplify all this thing equation with the one that you have derived for delta, which is the boundary layer thickness, so you end up getting this skin friction coefficient to be about 0.3 of Reynolds number to the power half. So you can really correlate this skin friction also associated with the Reynolds number. You are basically representing the same equation here, but you are representing in a different form, right? That leads to a another interesting number, that is what is called the Stanton number. How do you do that? You take a ratio of Nusselt number to Reynolds number and Prandtl number. If you take these three dimensionless numbers, and if you just put all the parameters here, you end up getting Hx by rho Cp u infinity, which is called the Stanton number into Prandtl number, which is called the Stanton number. Okay. Now this Stanton number into Prandtl number to the power 2/3 is Cfx by 2. Now why this correlations are important? Say suppose I go back to my previous correlation. You need, say suppose there is a pipe flow, and all the conditions. As an engineer, all the conditions. Like say suppose water, the density, okay, the velocity, the viscosity, okay, and the thermal diffusive, the density, viscosity, specific heat, everything Now in this you have a flow property which is called the heat transfer coefficient. If you have to evaluate the heat transfer coefficient, how will you do that? You can obtain thermal conductivity, right? You can obtain density, you can obtain viscosity. These are all available through charts. But heat transfer coefficient, how do you obtain? So if you calculate, if you know the Reynolds number, if you know the Prandtl number, you are able to really evaluate Nusselt number, and from Nusselt number you get the heat transfer coefficient, right? Similarly, say suppose if a friction is happening, if say suppose there is a pipe flow is happening, and then there is friction. Now, one very important factor for a friction is like the friction factor. Now, this friction factor will be different for different geometries, different for different situations. You do not know what is that friction factor. So, if you use this analogy, okay, you will see that using Stanton number, using Prandtl, if you know the Prandtl number, if you know the Stanton number, you will be able to really get the friction coefficient, which is Cfx by 2. So these are also very, very important, correlations where you can really dynamically get. If you do not have any idea, like what is going to happen, you may just straight away use these equations in order to get those parameters. So you can see people have done different type, laminar, local. Tomorrow we'll do the tutorial. Okay, so there you will see that. We will see here that all these different types of flow situations we will create, and we will use these analogies in a very different manner in order to solve those problems. So laminar, local, okay, restrictions, these are the typical restrictions, and you have the equation related to Nusselt number to Reynolds number, right? Turbulent, local, so you may have the Reynolds number. So you can see under different regimes, high speed flow, okay, laminar, turbulent, we can really define these, Nusselt number, thickness of the boundary layer, friction coefficient in many different ways. And these are all what, you first, I have identified a framework like this, okay, and then what you did, you performed a number of experiments with different geometries, and from there you just modulated the correlation according to the results, the experimental results that you had obtained, right? We will do some of the problems, and we'll see how exactly they translate into this sort of, there are an array. So you will have a handbook here, like, these are some of those which have been presented. You may have a handbook where you will be able to really see, a number of correlations that are available with any design, okay, which will be matching to any of the design that you really want to perform. Okay, I need not remember all these things, just keep an eye on all these things, that this is possible that way. Now, in laminar only, the situation was so difficult, so you can understand how difficult it is for a turbulent boundary layer, right? So people again started, like, modeling this thing in a very comprehensive manner. By the way, one thing you should remember, that when I talk about a boundary layer, the boundary layer means the entire thickness, this thickness. Okay, boundary layer doesn't mean that only the laminar sublayer. The boundary layer means this entire part. That part has three different, for a turbulent flow, that it has a three parts like laminar sublayer, buffer layer, and turbulent. For laminar, this is entirely laminar sublayer, right? But then the boundary layer is the entire zone. This is the turbulent boundary layer, and this is the turbulent free stream flow. These are two different aspects. You don't just mix this U infinity with this U, which is turbulent, right? Now, in a turbulent boundary layer, the velocity profile is still changing, whereas in a free stream, the flow profile is plug flow. Okay, it's a uniform flow profile here, correct? So this is still changing here. This is still changing here. This is still changing here. Here it is severely changing, intermediately changing. Here it is changing nominally, right? So the boundary layer can be turbulent, the boundary layer can be transitional, and boundary layer can be laminar based on the flow situation that you obtain. Now, what was the first proposition? People, because turbulent boundary layer, again, it's very difficult. Even you do not set up equations. For a turbulent boundary layer, you do not have a governing equation. It is an entirely stochastic process. It is a very random and stochastic. Whatever you have, it is shown here. This is a very isotropic situation. People have assumed like this. But then even this is not true for very highly turbulent flows, right? This is an assumption. In order to model that. In order to create a framework, you have created an assumption. You have created a framework like this in order to really explain the isotropic turbulence. But then, real high-speed turbulence is an entirely probabilistic and stochastic process, correct? So no continuum model will be, because you can understand that these are all non-continuous, discontinuous functions. These are all random functions, okay? And they have no, they have a lot of singularities rather. So say, suppose if you see this spike, there's a singularity associated with it. It's a very difficult system to model. So what you do, you define framework like there is a U mean, and there is a U fluctuation, there's a V mean, there's a U fluctuation, and then what you define, these are called the Reynolds stresses. These are called the Reynolds stresses, okay? What is Reynolds stress? You define these fluctuating parts is generating an inertia, which is rho V dot U dot. This is an inertia that has been generated. This is kinetic energy that has been generated because of these random fluctuations. Okay, and in that, what you assume that over a period of time, okay, the fluctuations, mean fluctuations are, the average fluctuations are 0. However, the product is not 0. The stress is not 0. Okay, the kinetic energy is not 0, right? So in that process, what you do, you say that there is a velocity profile like this, and you have this velocity profile has U bar and U fluctuating. Okay, and if I do a simple Taylor series, I say that Uy plus L is equal to U at Y plus L into del U del Y. Uy minus L is Uyy minus L into del U del Y. So if I do a simple Taylor series expansion around this particular point, okay, what I end up getting, first it was postulated by Prandtl. Okay, what he suggested that this fluctuating velocity can be L into del U del Y, because that is the change. Even if you do a simple Taylor series in a DL element, so that becomes that dy element, that becomes L into du by dy. Okay, and then from there people could really progress. He could really progress. So he said that tau turbulence, which is the Reynolds stress, you say that just like the way Newton's law has been done. So you say that rho em is your turbulent viscosity du into dy. So there's a terminology that is coming, which is called eddy viscosity or turbulent viscosity. Okay, which comes out to be what? which comes out to be proportional to this L square into du dy, because this is v dot u dot. Okay. Now what is L? L you define as ky. Okay, and then you can say tau w is rho k square y square du dy whole square. These are all done based on certain analogies, certain assumptions. Okay, so you define first the turbulent Reynolds stresses. Okay, and from there you define a length scale associated with that. Okay, and then what you do, you define the wall shear stress has to be like this. Now, if you do that way, then what happens from there? You can integrate this equation to obtain a velocity profile which is u equal to 1 by k root over of tau w by p ln y plus c. This is able to really explain this velocity profile in some way. Which way? So you can see this is a kind of linear, this is a kind of a bit parabolic, and this is a kind of blunt profile. So that has been explained in the next slide. You can see that, this is the typical, generic framework. You say that tau by rho is equal to nu. Nu is what? Nu is the molecular viscosity. Em is what? Em is the eddy viscosity, and this is du dy. It's an extension of the Newton's law for a flow which is turbulent. Right? Now what you do, you define two non-dimensional parameters. One is called u plus and the other is called y plus. What is u plus? U plus is nothing but division of u by tau by rho. This is what you define. U root over of tau by rho divide, you say that is u plus, and y plus you define very similarly from this equation only. Okay, so if you define u plus and y plus likewise, okay, and then if you plug these two equations in this particular equation, you get a dimensionless form like this. Okay, now once you get a dimensionless form like this, you take three limits. Laminar sublayer is 0 y plus 5, buffer layer is 5 to 3 y plus, and turbulent layer is 30 to 400. So essentially, this is the limit that you are defining here. Essentially, these are the three limits what you do. And then what you do, 0 to 5, what is the situation here? In 0 to 5, your EM is nearly 0, because this in the laminar sublayer, your EM will be 0. So you put EM to be 0. EM to be 0 here. If I put EM to be 0, du become dy plus. So u plus will become y plus c. Okay, and then you know that u plus equal to 0 at y equal to 0, which is the no slip condition if I enforce. So u plus will become y plus. You can see that you obtain a linear profile here, which is the laminar sublayer near the wall. Then what happens? Then you make use of this equation. Okay, which is true for the turbulent boundary layer. Okay, and you define EM to be k of root over of tau w rho by y. This is the way you define the eddy viscosity, which comes out to be ky plus. Okay, now if you integrate this with this ky plus, so you obtain for the turbulent regime, where in the turbulent regime, what is the turbulent zone? The turbulent zone is this zone, right? So that particular zone, if you integrate, you get for the turbulent zone, for the buffered layer and the turbulent layer, you get an expression which is u plus equal to 1 by k ln y plus c. And then you perform a number of experiments to fit in the profile that is associated with this and that is associated with that. So it comes out to be from 5 to 30. You fit in a correlation like this. Whereas for this relationship, you fit in a correlation like this. So you may see that it's a combined effort of very interesting analytical and simple analytical thinking related to turbulent flow, which was devised by Prandtl, and combination of very smart experiments led to the first velocity profile associated with the turbulent flow. And you will read this also in fluid mechanics. Now, what is the advantage? Why we are going towards the turbulent flow? Because that is a reality, right? Why it is a reality? Because say, suppose if you really want to mix something, if you really want to reduce the heat, of something, what do? You try to generate turbulence locally, and it is a fact that say suppose if there is turbulence, then what happens? Something getting cooled down or heated up becomes much easier. But then how in engineering system, how do you first quantify, how do you modulate, and then how do you fit in for different types of devices? So suppose you have a car radiator that is getting heated up. Now you want to withdraw heat as fast as possible. You have a microprocessor. In your computer, you have a microprocessor. Now this microprocessor, when you are doing heavy computation, that is getting heated up. how do you withdraw? So you see that there will be a thin paste that will be added on top of this microprocessor. The white color paste will be there. Okay, so this is a very highly conductive material. A thin film will be applied. And then you will see there'll be a fan that is rotating on top of that. So first what you do, you withdraw the heat from the microprocessor towards the surface of this white paste thin film. Now once it transfers there, then what you do, you convect it, you generate turbulence. So what happens? The heat is withdrawn. So heat has been withdrawn from the microprocessor to the surface of the film, and then you are rotating at a very high velocity this fan in order to move it to some other place, right? So, you know, the flow profiles are fluid flow is one very important factor that is associated with the heat transfer process, and that's what we are studying for last 3-4 classes. What is the role of convection here? And you will see another 10 minutes will conclude the entire thing related to that. So the first step of that is that, say, suppose if you have a turbulent flow, which is heat flux, how do I define in terms of a heat flux, Q by A? So what it does, you see that in thermal diffusivity, what I do, I put a AD heat transfer. Okay, this epsilon is very similar to epsilon M. I was doing epsilon M for momentum, and epsilon H is the AD viscosity or AD diffusivity associated with the heat transfer. So you can see that my equation for flux becomes a little bit modified. What is the proposition here? Proposition here is that if there is a laminar flow, it will be controlled by the molecular motions. It will be diffusion limited, okay, and then there will be heat transfer. But if you put recirculation, I say that there will be additional ADs, additional diffusivities because of these ADs, okay, which is called the AD diffusivity related to heat transfer. Now, what I say that epsilon M is very, very greater than mu. In the turbulent flow regime is what? But epsilon M, the momentum diffusivity of ADs is much, much higher than the molecular diffusivity, and the thermal diffusivity related to the turbulence is much, much higher than the thermal diffusivity, molecular thermal diffusivity. And this is what has been defined by the turbulent Prandtl number, which is epsilon M by epsilon H. It is just a replacement of nu by alpha, where epsilon H is what? Epsilon H is the AD viscosity associated with the heat transfer. Okay. Now, again, it comes out to be like, you know, you will have these same analogies associated with the skin friction. Okay, how they correlate with the Reynolds number, and process remains to be the same. You know the coefficient with the laminar flow. You perform a number of experiments and you end up getting Reynolds number to the power minus half. What was the situation in case of a laminar flow? You could see that, like, you know, for a situation with the laminar flow, this was the Reynolds number to the power minus half. For a turbulent flow, I did perform a number of experiments. I see how exactly skin friction coefficient is varying. This is varying with respect to minus 1/5. Okay, so you can see that again the Stanton number, Prandtl number, you know, these are also again performed. Now, for a turbulent flow, you do not have any analytical model. You take the correlations, the functions that are associated with the laminar flow, and then you try and identify these coefficients, you try and identify these exponents, and try and identify these coefficients. And you can see that that has been given, like, you know, here. If I just put a little bit upward, this will become clear. So you can see that these are all different types of fitting parameters that has been obtained, okay, at different Reynolds numbers. So these are all, you know, correlation based. You know, is a very difficult science, physics, in terms of modeling and then getting some result associated with that. Now, one very interesting thing that people have found out, that, you know, this boundary layer profile, you know, fits in very well with this. You know, it's a very huge amount of research. You know, after that, people could find out that, you know, this fits in with 1/7 law. You know that laminar profile is always with, you know, that fits in with, like, you know, the square, the parabolic. But in this situation, you can see u by u infinity fits in very well with the 1/7 law. And you can see all these, you know, even you can derive this 1/5 del by del x to the power 0.31 Reynolds number to the power minus 1/5. You know, if you just fit in this equation, you will be able to really get this part for turbulent flow, right? So the derivation is given. You just go through this part. We have done so many times As for laminar flow, different types of flow profiles. Now, if you fit in this side of profile, you will be able to really get the wall shear stress, CF, and all the other parameters related you can obtain. Great. So profiles, how do the profile look like? So you can see that heat transfer coefficient reduces. Heat transfer coefficient reduces with Reynolds number. Why? Because with Reynolds number, the boundary layer thickness increases. Okay, so Reynolds number X. So here, what is the flat plate? If I, for this is a flat plate situation. So suppose if I look at here, Reynolds number is 0. As I keep increasing here, what is happening? As I'm going downstream, what is happening? Rex is slowly increasing, and as Rex is increasing, you can see that the thickness of the boundary layer is increasing. Right now, you can see that I'm talking about the hydrodynamic thickness. As it becomes turbulent, what happens? As it becomes turbulent, what happens? Again, like in turbulent, lot of influence is coming from here, but this particular portion keeps increasing as the boundary layer becomes turbulent. Whereas the laminar part keeps shrinking. The laminar sublayer, that keeps shrinking as the turbulent boundary layer increases. So why heat transfer coefficient reduces? Because the boundary layer thickness increases. Okay, and moment the boundary layer thickness will increase, and if you have a less turbulence there, what will happen? This is basically limiting your process. Although turbulence is trying to withdraw the heat from the surface, or like or impinge it into the surface based on the temperature gradient, right? The thickness of the boundary layer will be diffusion limited. So your job will be to reduce the thickness of the boundary layer as much as you can. Okay, in order to make sure that your heat transfer is efficient, because the resistance will come from the boundary layer. So that's what has been reflected in these equations. And in some situations, you may model them well. Say suppose it is a log-log. These two are same plots. This is semi-log and this is log-log. And Hx is the local heat transfer coefficient, and H average is the average heat transfer coefficient. So you may see in some places you may fit in well, but there are discontinuities and there are different ways. So you really cannot have an analytical model for this. Okay. Now once you appreciate that, how analytically it has been done. Okay, these days how analytically it has been. These days you just take the entire set of transport equation and you put numerically and you solve it. But if you really want to do analytically, again, that is also possible. You see how simple it is. This you are perhaps through in fluid mechanics, that you have a pressure drop across a pipe, and then there is a flow. It's a fully developed steady state flow. So you expect a parabolic profile. How do you do that? You do a momentum balance, right? So what you do, pi r square dp equal to tau into 2 pi r dx, right? And then that 2 per tau, what you do, you replace this tau by the Newton's law of viscosity. So what you get? So it is like the viscosity that is happening around this. Okay, so tau is what? Tau is the shear stress. 2 pi r is what? Is the 2 pi r is the 2 pi r is the radius, and then you are basically in this pipe you are considering a differential volume element like this. It's a shell. Okay, so 2 pi r into 2 pi r into dx. Okay, that is what is, this is the stress, this is the area, this is the force. This is the force because of friction, and this is the force because of pressure. So these two, if you equate, okay, and then if you replace tau with the Newton's law of viscosity, then you obtain a balance equation, a differential equation like this for a flow which is a pressure-driven flow undergoing friction. Now, if you integrate for you get this, and then if you enforce the boundary condition, you get this parabolic profile. Okay, this is what is your parabolic profile. U is equal to this, and then u0 is what? At r equal to 0, u0, you get this r square by dp. So u by u0 is equal to 1 minus r by r1. So you ultimately get a parabolic profile. You get something associated with u is a function of u0. Okay. Now once that is done, then what you can do, you can really take this equation for a heat transfer. Say suppose there is a hot fluid that is flowing through the pipe, and this pipe wall is cold. Okay, now this can also be modeled from the differential equation. How is that so? So you can see that net energy convected out, you can really write from the cell balance equation. So these are the typical terminologies I have given. Just go through this, that this is a shell, and through the shell what is happening, there is a heat flux. This is the conducted part, this is the conducted in, this is the conducted out, and then this is the net convected out, right? So if I have these terminologies like this, and if I do a differential volume, differential cell balance like this, I end up getting, a balance equation for temperature, which looks like this, right? Now, what is the job here? So now you see that, very simply, this U term has come in the left hand side, okay, associated with what? When you are going for the net heat that is convected. Net heat that is convected out. How are you calculating? You have a temperature gradient of dT by dx. Okay, 2 pi r dr is your what? 2 pi r dr is your area, and rho Cp is the, so you have the area and you have the volume. Okay, and rho Cpu is the total amount of mass that is flowing. It's an open system now, so total amount of mass that is flowing, and then total amount of heat transfer associated with the, in the x direction associated with the convection flow is coming out to be like this. Now, if you integrate this equation, so what you get? You end up getting a temperature profile which looks like this. Here you will see that cleverly this U will be supplemented by this U. Okay, it is written perhaps in terms of U equal to U0. So this U has been supplemented here, which is in terms of U0 into 1 minus R by R0. Okay, so if you replace that, and then if you integrate over the temperature, you end up getting a temperature profile like this. You will end up getting a temperature profile like this. Now, once you know the temperature, you know everything. You know the temperature, you know at which location what temperature is there. You know the dT by dr. Okay, you already know TW and TB, so you know the H. Okay, you know the Q. So everything is known associated with the heat transfer once you know the temperature, right? So it's a very simple way of showing that. Say, suppose if I really assume there is a fluid flow that is taking through a pipe, that is going through pipe. Okay, and there is a mass that is flowing across. Say, suppose tube wall is heated at a temperature T, and say, suppose the liquid is cold. Okay, and then there is a heat transfer that is taking place, right? So in that sort of situation, I can do a shell balance. Okay, and from the shell balance, first I can get the velocity profile. Now, once I get the velocity profile, I do an energy balance, and in the energy balance, I keep the convective part alive, which I was not doing when I was doing the conductive heat transfer. Okay, now if I keep this part alive, then if I integrate with this velocity profile, I'll be able to get a temperature profile which will include this velocity. Okay, and from there I can really obtain all the heat fluxes, stresses, hydrodynamic stresses, everything you can get, from this temperature profile and from this velocity profile. You can calculate the Nusselt number, you can calculate the Reynolds number, you can calculate the heat transfer coefficient, and you can really obtain the value of Nusselt number, for D0, which is coming out to be about 4.364. Okay, this will be more handy, as you do more tutorials and all, this will become more handy. Now, the same situation in turbulent flow becomes a little bit tricky. Why is that so? You know that, this is your conductive and this is your thermal diffusivity, right? But in case of a turbulent, what you need to do, as we just discussed that, you need to just, when you equate, you put this eddy viscosity associated with the heat transfer, right? Now, in that situation, you may see that in turbulent flow also, just move it up a little bit. So once you assume that this is your hydrodynamic, and this is your hydrodynamic part, and this is your thermal part. Okay. Now what you do, you first divide these two equations. Okay. If you divide these two equations, you may get a very simple equation like this. Okay, which is Q by Cp. Basically, this is your momentum. Tau by rho is this, and this is Q is this. This is your thermal. Right now, say suppose if you divide these two equations, you end up getting something like this. If you integrate that over different types of limits, you end up getting the friction factor, the Nusselt number. Okay, Nusselt number, this is basically the Stanton number, the Nusselt number, okay, this is the friction factor. So an array of correlations that can be generated simply by having a few assumptions, just by defining a parameter. That what am I doing here? I'm assuming that other than molecular diffusion, there are eddies, there are recirculations with the fluid, which is enhancing the fluid, enhancing the heat transfer, from in the boundary layer, in the core and in the different places, which is the physical significance of this EH. However, I just have a word of caution for you. Although a lot of things has been done around this EM and EH, the physical, the magnitudes of this EH and EM are so drastically different, right? So people generally people generally avoid using these as the parameters. Just like say suppose density, I know that it should be 1000. I plug in, right? But then for EH and EM, there is not much like such parameters one can really obtain. So people generally trust using this type of equations. Once again, you can see that the exponents they change. Okay, the exponents they change. So this is what is the purpose of showing this part, that if I do this hodgepodge, after that I get a kind of correlation, which is Nusselt number at diameter D is equal to 0.395, Reynolds number to the power 34, Prandtl number to the power 1/3. I do a lot of, first I get this expression, then I do a lot of experiments, to finalize that. Okay, this should not be about 0.75, but this should be about 0.8. Now, this type of correlations have served very well the engineering calculations. Okay, so you can really use, you can see the framework is not very different. You obtain delta, you obtain Nusselt number in the form of Reynolds number and Prandtl number. Then you correlate friction factor with the Reynolds number. Then you correlate the Stanton number and Prandtl number with the friction factor. You see that whatever you require, you have a velocity profile. Okay, you have a temperature profile. So whatever parameter you need to calculate for a heat transfer calculation, you already have the basic parameters, lined down. Okay, so with this, generally I finish, flow over flat plates, definition of boundary layer, laminar to turbulent. Okay, this is a very difficult area, I'm telling you. But then I hope most of the things, if you go through the lectures, most of the things that are required, say suppose mass, momentum, and energy balance, incompressible to compressible, constant temperature to constant heat flux situations. Okay, establish the flow regime determined by the boundary layers, like say suppose laminar, transition, transitional layer. In the boundary layer itself, the different zones, laminar, turbulent, buffer. Okay, so now what is the challenge as an engineer? The biggest challenge as an engineer is this. Okay, which is the equation that you are going to select? Because Nusselt number will be correlated with Reynolds number and Prandtl number. Friction factor will be somehow correlated to the Reynolds number. Okay, Stanton number and Prandtl number will have some influence on the friction factor. Now, these things are done. Now, which exponent you are going to choose, which coefficient you are going to choose, that is where your engineering genius lies. For pipe flow, which will work. For flat plate flow over flat plate, what will work? For a bundle of pipes, what will work? That you have to figure out, and that comes with experience, that come with on job. You do not know which job you are going to end up with after this, but then there is an overview of how state of art of fluid mechanics in conjunction with the heat transfer, and then from here on you have to work hard in order to make sure that you make something new out of this whole thing. Just another point to suggest that today people are going away from all these analogy related words, because there is computational fluid dynamics available. But then for the discrete flows, even computational fluid dynamics is also difficult. Like say suppose turbulent regime, turbulent boundary layer, even CFD is also not able to give you the results. So it's a chicken and egg problem. So people are doing different types of stochastic modelings in order to explain this phenomenon. Okay, so we extend the same thing that we were doing. Okay, so for different types of flow situations now, which is the lecture 11 and 12 and chapter 6. Now you will see, since you have now more or less understood the framework, that what will be the boundary layer thickness, what is thermal boundary layer thickness and hydrodynamic boundary layer thickness. Okay, what is Nusselt number? What is Prandtl number? What is Reynolds number? What is Stanton number? What is friction factor? And how these things are correlated. Now, once that is clear from the derivation point of view, now you can really look for different types of situations. Correct? So let us start very simply with the order of magnitude analysis. That this was your hydrodynamic equation, right? And this was your continuity equation. Now, say suppose I say that your u is u infinity and y is delta, and I just plug back in here. So what I get, v is equal to v, delta y is my boundary layer thickness, u is my u infinity, and x is x. If I do that, I get v equal to u infinity delta by x. Now x is very long, delta is very small. So even if u infinity is very high, so delta by x make v very small. So one can appreciate that v will be negligible here, right? Now, if I plug in this v into this equation, I square equal to mu x by u infinity. So even you see that I don't do anything else. See this particular equation like delta by x equal to 5 by re to the power half, I can simply obtain by just plugging in some parameters. This is a very smart way of doing it. Like I just convert this differential equation to an approximate algebraic equation. This is my continuity equation, so I enforce my mass balance. Okay, the continuity equation I enforce in my momentum equation in order to get the delta square. Okay, now from delta square I get this delta is equal to 1 by root over of Rex. I don't do anything much. These are the later developments that of course the delta by x, that means the dimensionless thickness of the hydrodynamic boundary layer, will be function of Reynolds number to the power minus half. Okay. Okay. Now, so people started thinking that I should have Nusselt number at one side, I should have Reynolds number one side, and then I should do experiment, a number of experiment to fit in for different regions, right? Different types of flow profile, different types of situations. If I get, I do an experiment, I just vary the velocity, I measure all the parameters associated with that. So an array of work has been done. Say suppose there is a pipe flow. You may see that, for Prandtl number this, for Reynolds number this, it varies like that. For Prandtl number this, for Reynolds number this. So, you get a correlation, which is NUD is equal to C into RED to the power M, PR to the power N. So this became the workhorse for the engineering. And today also, say for turbulent flow, this is still the workhorse. Okay, and you keep adding different parameters specific to different types of flow. Like say suppose when D by L come when I want to know what is the entrance effect. Because for a given D by L, I know that say what if this is the length of the tube and if this is the diameter of the tube, if that is very high, if the diameter is very small and length is very high, then most of the pipe will be filled with fully developed flow. Whereas if it is less, I may have a if D is small, if D is large and L is small, if D is large, L is small, I may expect a velocity profile like this. But if D is small and L is very large, in most of the pipe, I may expect a parabolic profile. So one may expect different types of situations based on what? Based on the geometry, based on the fluid properties and all, and I keep adding those parameters based on the specificity of the system that I am considering. And this framework was first proposed by two very prominent engineers. So their name is Dittus and Boelter. So this framework is called the Dittus-Boelter framework, and they suggested that for turbulent flow, Nusselt number will be equal to 0.023, like this type of fitting. RE to the power point is a famous Dittus-Boelter equation, which has been used, very, very extensively for different types of heating and cooling of fluids, okay, across different types of geometries, right? Great. Now, of course, you understand now the importance of the friction factor. So if this is the case with the heat transfer with convective and conductive, then what should I do with the friction factor? Okay, so again I get into a framework, okay, where I try to correlate friction factor. This is the typical Reynolds number friction factor. So you have all done this Moody's chart, right? In the fluid mechanics, if you have not done, you will do this Moody's chart, where this is the the fanning friction factor F equal to 64 by RE, and this is the turbulent domain. Okay, and this is for different roughnesses. So it's a log-log plot. Okay, so this is the friction factor versus this is the Reynolds number. So Reynolds number increases, friction factor decreases. Okay, so low speed flow means high friction, high speed flow means low friction, and low friction means, you know, in the boundary layer, low friction means low heat generation, right? So in that process, you always remember that in the boundary layer, if it is a laminar flow, it's a molecular mechanism. Now, as you increase the roughness, what is happening? You have more eddies. You know, rough means, you know, more turbulence is generated. So as the more turbulence is generated, you are increasing the friction factor. So you can see that, you know, friction factor has different correlation with Stanton number, Prandtl number, and here you introduce another parameter, which is the last one perhaps in the entire heat transfer process. So we started with, like, you know, this Fourier number, Biot number, and thermal diffusivity, that is Prandtl number. Then we defined Reynolds number, Nusselt number, Stanton number, and the last one is defined as the Peclet number, which is defined as the Reynolds number into Prandtl number. Okay, so that is the Peclet number. So you can see that, you know, Stanton number and Prandtl number is correlated to the friction factor. Okay, Reynolds number, Prandtl number is more than greater than 10 for certain situations. So you may just, you know, go through these different types of parts. These are, like, you know, describing different types of flow situations. I just wanted to highlight that, you know, friction factor has a very big importance in terms of, you know, you can also use these dimensionless numbers for their calculation. Okay, so one can see different types of geometries. This, I think, you have done extensively in your fluid mechanics. That say, suppose if you have a circular cross section, you use the diameter. But say, suppose if you do not have circular cross section, say you have a cross section like this. So what you do, you use a concept called the hydraulic diameter. Okay, so what is that? That is nothing but the flow area by the weighted perimeter. So you can get an equivalent radius. So Nusselt number also is calculated for a pipe. Nusselt number is also calculated. Nusselt number is also calculated using, you know, in case of a flat plate, it will be hx by k. In case of a pipe, it will be hd by k. Now this d for different geometries can be used as the hydraulic diameter, just the way it has been used as hydraulic diameter for the friction factor. Okay. So I will come to this Gray's number later. I just finished today's lecture that it's not only important, you know, for a flat plate, the fluid flow is not only fluid flow and heat transfer is not only important for a flat plate, but this also has very big consequence in terms of the other objects. So suppose I imagine this to be a ball. Okay, so you have a fluid flow that is coming. So it is undergoing a creeping flow and then going out. But if you increase the flow, what will happen? It will not always stick to the wall, but it may just separate from the wall and it can create recirculation like this. In that situation, if you increase the flow further, what will happen? There will be vortices that are generated. Beyond that, still this is a laminar flow because you can see the Reynolds number is small. But if you go beyond a certain Reynolds number, you may see at the back side of the fluid there is a turbulence. Okay, and then there will be, you know, at very high Reynolds number there will be a turbulent wave. So you can see that, say, suppose this is a heated ball, the heat transfer will be hugely affected by the flow patterns that are around this. Okay, so this will be another aspect that we will be discussing here. Like as we progress, I will be describing. So how exactly the drag coefficient, right? So anything that is associated with this, the friction of this particular object is called drag, which is very similar to the friction factor. Like, say, suppose drag versus Reynolds number. This is what we are showing the drag versus Reynolds number plot, right? So you may see that this is very similar to that friction factor versus Reynolds number, where the drag coefficient reduces with the Reynolds number. Okay, and then there are certain anomalies that take place that I'm going to explain in the next class. But remember this equation because in some of the tutorials this will be needed. So this CD, the drag coefficient, is associated with the friction around a flow past immersed body. This particular phenomena is called the flow past immersed body. Swinging ball, okay, the polo balls, okay, like this is the volleyball service, right? Okay, this is the tennis ball. So different types of, this is the baseball. Okay, so different types of balls, if you do a kind of experiment, wind tunnel experiment, you may see different types of flow profiles, and influence of the boundary layer, the drag, the friction on the flow profile, the free stream velocity on the flow profile and heat transfer is very similar to what we have done. Okay, that we are going to discuss in the next class. So I just stop here because it has already been 1 hour, and I want to make an announcement here that tomorrow we have a tutorial. Okay, as announced before, tomorrow we have a tutorial. So please send the tutorials by today night, and tomorrow we will do the tutorials based on this these lectures. I'm going to send the lectures, both the lectures, whatever I have prepared to you. Later on, I will modify this 11 and 12 a little bit. Okay, so we will do the tutorial for an hour. Tomorrow is from 12 to 1, and then we don't have class on Friday because Friday is perhaps Durga Puja. So we will come back on 27th. Okay, so that is the plan. So any questions you have? Any questions? I should allow a little bit more question. I understand that. So let me just, get a little bit acquainted with the. This is happening because it's all online mode. I do not see any one of you. So hopefully from next class onwards, I will try to stop after some point of time to have a discussion with some of you. Okay, since now more or less I have covered the 50 to 60% of the course, we will have a lot of time. And then we can really have discussions on these aspects. And I will request you to prepare, whatever you are not understanding, you prepare your things. Okay. And then we will discuss about like slides and all. We can revisit and we can have a discussion as per your requirement. Any questions you have? Yeah, Prathu, want to tell something?
No, sir.
Yeah, so let us send the tutorial by today night so that tomorrow morning they are ready with the tutorial, and we'll do the tutorial, some of the problems, and the deadline for submission of the tutorial will be 27th. Okay, since you are getting it on 28th, so by 27th, morning 6 a.m. you should be submitting all the before the class. Let us do it by before the class. You should be submitting all the tutorials. Okay, or should we defer it to 30th because there is puja, no? What is your opinion? No opinion? Okay, let us do it on 30th as, let us keep this Friday thing because 30th, I think, anyway, we are not doing tutorials. So they will be submitting these tutorials on 30th by 12. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.